There is a boycott happening for Sony right now. There are some people who are calling for a blackout of all Sony like online consoles basically between August 23rd to August 30th. Now, as of recording this, that is several weeks away. Yeah, there's a lot of questions you probably have. For one, does this include all Sony consoles? Yes, this includes all online Sony consoles. So PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, just anything where you would have to sign into PlayStation Network, do not sign into PlayStation Network. Any online games, any single player games, whatever, just do not sign into PlayStation. The way I'm going to be doing this is during this boycott, I am going to be turning off my PlayStation 5. I'll be turning off my PS4 because, yes, I still have that. And I will be using old consoles that are here in the house. There's an Xbox 360 sitting in the living room. It's not mine, but I'm going to be borrowing it, for this boycott. There are some old games I kind of want to catch up on anyway. If you have a PC, even better. That's, actually perfect. So, if you have Steam or Epic or whatever, that's probably going to be the best, alternative to move on to from PlayStation to begin with. And there's a whole discussion I want to get into later regarding that. Here's probably the biggest question that you're going to have. Why bother, right? Why bother? Because if there's an end date to this boycott, then all Sony has to do is wait, and then when it's over, they'll just get their customers back. I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because Sony has made so much of a mess with this whole thing that I don't think there's realistically anything they can do to convince most people that this is just, like a hiccup, right? And I say this because there is a patent right now that got leaked for a controller that doesn't even have physical buttons. Sony patented a controller design that has no physical buttons and instead replaces it with basically a big touchpad. And if you've ever played games on your phone, then you know why this is such a horrible idea. So I'm not going to elaborate on that further. There's also the fact that, by and large, physical games have historically actually sold really well, better than Sony's letting on. And I actually talked about this recently. So remember those stats that Sony quoted suggesting that overwhelmingly more physical games, or not physical, more digital games sold than physical? What they didn't tell people is that most video games that were available only had digital versions, which meant that even if you wanted physicals of certain games, they just weren't available. What they also didn't tell people, what they also didn't mention was how big titles like Resident Evil Requiem or Spider-Man 2, for example, overwhelmingly sold physically. Those big mainstay single player titles, yeah, more physical of those sold than digital. And the only reason that they didn't sell even more was because some stores were running out of stock. And that's also partially because Sony was restricting the actual distribution. They were only putting out so many of them. Sony has been trying so hard over the past several years to actually move the pieces in place to do away with physical, and they just can't. So now they're just, flat out saying it that they don't want to do physical anymore. And this is all to try and kill preservation and ownership. And rightfully, people are upset. In fact, I'm actually glad people are upset because this is a real issue. It's something I've cared about for a while, but I didn't think they would actually do it. And well, here they are, just full on fucking trying to revoke people's ownership. there's also the question of, well, if we care about physical and ownership so much, then why move over to PC? PC has not had physical games for actual decades. And the reason, and the difference is because of two things. One, Steam is way more trustworthy than Sony has been for a long time. If you buy a game on Steam, not only does that game stay in your library even if it gets delisted, but Sony, but Steam will actually respect your purchase, and if you ask for a refund, under most circumstances, they will just give you your money back as long as you haven't played it for more than 2 hours. Hell, even in some instances, even if you have played it for longer, they will still probably give you a refund if, they feel like it maybe makes sense. It's like they just treat customers better. They offer better services. Also, Steam doesn't get hacked as often. Another infamous issue with Sony is how terrible their security is. So that's one issue. The second thing is, if you're going to be playing digital games, it should at least be on a platform as open as PC. I am currently on Linux, but even on Windows, you can browse your files and actually move stuff around. You still somewhat own the system that you buy even on Windows. On Linux, ownership is even more of a thing. On Linux, it is just your system. Because Linux is free and it's open source, you control the computer. If there's a file somewhere on it, you can move it anywhere else you want, and no stupid fucking bullshit is gonna stop you from doing it. You can't say the same about consoles. So it's just such an obvious it's just such an obvious better choice in this instance. So yeah, fuck Sony. All this backlash they're getting it's just so deserved. Fuck them. So yeah, from August 23rd to August 30th, there will be a blackout of Sony's online servers. Basically, people are just going to turn off their PlayStations and do other stuff for a week. Now, I don't think this is going to be the one thing that makes Sony backpedal, right? It's going to take so much more effort than this. But this is a great first step, and I am so glad people have been suggesting this. I think it's a good idea. Because what this is essentially going to do is tell Sony that we don't need them. And then over time, as more and more people move away from their ecosystem, which is what I'm hoping happens, it's going to cost Sony so much more money in the long run than if they had just kept making discs. That is the outcome I am hoping for. And this boycott, I think, is a really, really good way to get that started. This is obviously not going to be the ultimate solution, right? There's going to be so much more that we'll have to do. Like I said, people are going to have to move away to other ecosystems, and I would prefer if people moved over to PC because of how open of a platform it is. It's if we're going to be moving towards that digital future, we may as well have it be on a platform that gives us that kind of freedom. So, yeah. That is I think that is what I want people to take away from this. That yes, we should be partaking in this boycott, but also we need to actually have a plan once it's over. Me personally, I'm never buying another console from Sony ever again. I may not even ever buy a console ever again, period. I just have no interest in consoles as a platform anymore. I'm just going to move over to PC. I don't know how I'm going to make that first move. I'll probably buy a Steam Deck if I ever have the chance. That would probably be my entry point. It would be nice to be able to afford a rig, but I just do not have that kind of money right now. Hopefully sometime in the near future things will change, but that's neither here nor there. And as for the games I'm going to play, well, I'll say this much. I'm not going to put Windows on whatever computer I get. It's going to have some form of Linux just because I refuse to give Windows any more of my fucking info if I can help it. The one exception to this would probably be Mojang, because I do still want to play Minecraft. For that, I would probably play the Java version, or like maybe dual boot Windows if I can like do that, but or maybe run it under a virtual machine. But in any case, there is just so much I'm going to be changing, hopefully within the next couple of years. And yeah, it's going to cost me a bit more money, but at this point, it's going to cost me a bunch of money either way. So I may as well pay more upfront to get the better experience. And I hope that's what you guys take away from this too, because like honestly, it's about time people stood up for this. So yeah, August 23rd to August 30th. Remember those dates, guys. That's it for now. I'm out.